Good morning to everybody. It's a pleasure to be back in London talking about these things happening in the future. I work with many leading organizations on futuristic ideas and projects around the planet. My family is originally from Spain, but they left during the Franco dictatorship. So I grew up in Venezuela, and I left during the Chavez dictatorship. And now I am in California, and I hope I don't have to live under the Trump dictatorship. And I am going to talk about Plan A and Plan B. First, we are working towards the death of death. Many transhumanist groups around the planet, we believe that we can be able to solve the little problem called death. But that is obviously Plan A, and then we need Plan B. Plan B is cryonics. So I'm working on both of those simultaneously. And so with some important, very important colleagues that I will announce very soon, we created this foundation called Vida Plus. Vida, as you probably know in Spanish, means life, and plus is more in Latin. This is a life extension foundation based in Madrid, Spain, and we are actually trying to promote these ideas all over Spain and Latin America as well. For example, during Longevity Day and Longevity Month, we hosted 3 different activities in Spain. You know that is October 1st and the whole month of October. The idea of the Longevity Day was taken from the United Nations Day of the Older Persons, which is October 1st, and we want to take it into the future, curing aging. There are other groups working on similar ideas, like, for example, in Washington, D.C., the Global Health Span Policy Institute that is also pushing towards indefinite lifespans. I have done also several TV programs with History Channel, Discovery Channel, and CNN in Spanish for Latin America, talking about these ideas, like this program that you can watch on YouTube, if you speak Spanish, called Vida Eterna, Eternal Life. This is becoming more and more popular. Actually, this was impossible to talk about, 10 years ago, but I have done now already 3 TV programs on these issues for the Spanish-speaking world. And I was also on a couple of programs with Donald Trump. To tell you the truth, I'm not so scared about his technology policy because a colleague, a friend, someone I admire, Peter Thiel, is his technology advisor. If you know who Peter Thiel is, he's one of the gurus of Silicon Valley in terms of technology, and he's his technology advisor and working in the transition team from Obama to the new government. So at least in terms of technology, Donald Trump will not be so bad. And Peter Thiel and many other people working in these areas, we believe that aging is a disease, but a curable disease. If you look at all the news articles recently about what is happening in California, in Silicon Valley, Never Say Die, or Google created 3 years ago a company called Calico, California Life Company, whose objective is to solve death. 2 of my students are actually working there, so I follow what they are doing, and I'm very optimistic. Also, my dear friend, Aubrey de Grey, has been popularizing these ideas. He created about 10 years ago with other people the Methuselah Foundation with the objective of longevity extension and rejuvenation, which is also important, rejuvenation. Now he's with the Sense Research Foundation doing also some very, very interesting work. And another friend of mine, Peter Diamandis, also co-founder of Singularity University, he created with Craig Venter, the man who sequenced the human genome and who created the first artificial bacteria called Cynthia. He created the Human Longevity Company, and he has said publicly that he plans to live at least 700 years. At least. Obviously, we are going to reach the Methuselarity probably very soon in 10 to 20 years, if not earlier, which means we will reach longevity escape velocity. And therefore, the longer we live, the much, much longer we will keep on living. We know today that actually there are already immortal cells, like cancer cells. Cancer cells are basically immortal. They do not age. But not just cancer cells. Also, germinal cells do not age. The stem cells do not age. So for people who do not believe this is possible, I say, well, we are not inventing anything. It already happens in nature. And there are life forms like hydras also that do not age. This already happens in nature. We just need to discover how to do it and to do it better. There is also a fantastic book by someone called David Good on the abolition of aging. So I like this book so much that we are working on another book with another colleague from Korea. So we will have 3 authors in this book called The Death of Death that we plan to launch next summer in Asia, in Europe, and in the Americas. All of this is becoming more understood by people like Mark Zuckerberg, whose wife is a medical doctor. And they announced a couple of months ago that they are donating all of their fortune to cure all diseases, including aging. And they started with $3 billion for the next 10 years. And they are creating also a biomedical center in San Francisco, combining researchers from 3 universities that hate each other, Stanford, Berkeley, and University of California and San Francisco, and to cure aging and all of diseases. So I'm very, very excited. Actually, Bill Gates was at this ceremony, and he was amazed himself. Bill Gates said, you know, Mark, when I was your age, I couldn't even dream of this. So it is really so beautiful. You can watch the video. It is available in YouTube. Companies like Microsoft also are discovering that we will be able to cure cancer. They are treating it as a virus. And they said publicly here in London and in other places, but here in London, that their objective is to cure cancer in 10 years. I love this because the disruption is coming from outside. Google, Facebook, Microsoft are the ones curing the diseases. It's not the drug companies, it's not the pharmaceutical companies, it's not the medical doctors, it is people from computing science. Also, another friend created what we call the Immortality Nobel Prize. It's a prize of $1 million that will be awarded next year for the first time. $1 million for people who work towards curing aging. So, I love Woody Allen, and as he said, I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens. And so we have Plan B. And let me tell you openly and publicly, I do not plan to die. It is not among my plans. But if something happens, I have Plan B, okay? Also, why I don't plan to die? Because I think I will survive 30 years. And by that time, we should have rejuvenation techniques. In any event, we have Plan B, cryonics. And cryonics we called the bridge between primitive medicine today and advanced medicine in the future. So basically, it is like emergency treatment from the past or the present into the future. It has become very popular because 2 weeks ago it was announced here in London, this 14-year-old girl called patient JS, who was cryonically frozen and then taken to Cryonics Institute outside Detroit, Michigan in the USA. I have been already over 20 times in the media because of this in Spain. TV, radio, newspapers, incredible coverage all over the planet. Here in the United Kingdom, but all over Europe, in the USA. This is really, really good news for the idea of promoting cryonics. Actually, cryopreservation is relatively old. It started about half a century ago with very simple life forms, sperm, eggs, then embryos, and then we do more and more and more on cryopreservation. Scientifically, we know how this works at a very small level since 1970s. I have been visiting all of the cryonic facilities around the planet. This is Cryo outside Moscow in Russia, and you see they have these huge, huge tanks to keep their patients. We call them patients. They have over 50 patients in outside Moscow. I was in charge of the cryonic suspension of the first Spanish person outside Madrid a few months ago, who happened to be a friend of ours who was working on this foundation, and he died of a heart attack, very sadly, on February 10th this year. He was born in Barcelona, but he died outside Madrid. So we actually cryopreserved him, and now he's in a very cool condition. Some of my friends working on this also in major universities in Spain, like the Universidad de Sevilla. This is one, Ramon Risco is one of the 10 experts in the planet on cryopreservation. Actually, he's an advisor to many of these companies doing umbilical cord cryopreservation and stem cell cryopreservation. And he has many patents on this. He's one of our members of the Cryonics Foundation in Spain. And he was even quoted here in London. I'm so happy. In The Guardian, they quoted him as one of the leading experts in the planet on cryopreservation. In fact, he's so famous, he's so important, that he has been training students to cryopreserve worms. 2 years ago, one of his students with Natasha Vita Moore cryonically suspended worms for the first time, and then they reanimated them, which is the important part, right? So they were reanimated, and actually Alcor published it, the experiment that one of our Spanish young people did, the reanimation of the C. elegans after having been frozen at liquid nitrogen temperature, minus 196 degrees. So we truly have leading experts in the planet, in the cryopreservation process and reanimation process. They have many patents. Both the faculty, Professor Ramon Risco, and the student, Daniel Barranco, we have several patents on all of these techniques because this is being invented as we talk. This is being created. There is no book. There is no manual. We only discover when we do it. And no one froze worms until 2 years ago with my Spanish friends. So I'm very, very proud of that. We are also working with the top leading scientists in Spain. We are going from the very top. We are working with the director of the Spanish National Cancer Research Institute, which is the woman in the center, Maria Blasco. She is actually internationally famous because she has been able to triple the life of mice. In fact, those mice that now live 3 times more, they are called triple, because they live 3 times longer because of her telomerase treatment that she discovered on cancer research. And this is being done in Madrid with one of my friends. And she just published a book. The little woman on your left is my mother, that I'm telling her about cryopreservation because she might not make it for 20 years, 30 years. So remember, plan B. But the scientist in the center is the top cancer researcher in Spain and one of the leading researchers in the world, and the one who has been able to extend the life of mice 3 times. So she published a book that my mother is holding called How to Die Young at 140 Years. And then I told her, you are absolutely wrong. It should be How to Die Young at 140,000 years. And then finally, for this following edition, I told her it has to be How Not to Die. Okay? So I think this is very simple. It is just a technical problem, and we will solve it in the next 20 to 30 years. I'm also very honored that the #1 lawyer of all of Spain, that has actually the largest legal firm in continental Europe, 8 billion euros, his name is Antonio Garrigues Walker for my Spanish friends. He's the #1 lawyer in Spain. He writes laws. He's with us. And he wrote an article in the major newspaper in Spain called ABC, talking about immortality and cryopreservation. And last week he made a theater piece about immortality in Madrid. The #1 lawyer. And this is very important because, unfortunately, in the Latin countries like France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, we have very bad laws because of the Roman legal system, which basically says that if it is not explicitly allowed, it is basically forbidden. So we have a horrible legal system in the Spanish-speaking world because of the Roman code, as opposed to the Anglo-Saxon, which is much more flexible. Basically, in the Anglo-Saxon system, if it is not forbidden, it is more or less allowed. So it is a different way to think about legal systems. But anyway, with the top legal advisor of Spain, I think we are going to do things. Also, we are working with the #1 heart surgeon of Spain, who is also a member of the Academy of Science of New York, and he is the cardiac surgeon of the Spanish royal family. Okay? He works for the King of Spain. And he was the first person who did a heart transplant of an infant. So it really is, we have a fantastic team, and medicine is changing radically. Next year, we're going to celebrate half a century of the first heart transplant. And my heart surgeon friend, actually, he worked with this doctor in South Africa. Additionally, we will also celebrate another very important milestone next year, which is the 50th anniversary of the first human cryopreservation, following the ideas of Robert Ettinger. The first human was cryopreserved on January 12, 1967, James Bedford in California. And this is called the Cryonics Day because of that happening very soon, half a century ago. So medicine has changed radically from the time of the Egyptians, very primitive medicine, to what we have today and what we will do in the next 20 years, okay? We are going to see magic in terms of medical arrangements. There is an international movement about sustaining cryonics, obviously, and there is an open letter of scientists, all of whom are medical doctors and PhDs, to make this accredited. Also, some of my students at Singularity University created the Organ Preservation Alliance, and these ideas are becoming so powerful that they just got $100 million from the Department of Defense. Well, them and other groups working on this. And the new Organ Alliance as well. There are other ways also of preserving the brain. You know, you can do vitrification, plastification, and other things which are being experimented. There are many centers in the world, 3 major ones, Alcor in Arizona, Cryonics Institute in Michigan, Cryonics outside Moscow, and the one we are created in Spain so that you come and visit. In fact, I want to welcome you all to the warmest Cryonics Summit in history, which will be in 3 cities in Spain. We will start in the capital, in Madrid, then we will hold other events in Seville and in Barcelona. So please do come, this is going to be very cool, I promise. We will celebrate and we will have awards for the first transplant, heart transplant in human history that changed the way we look at things. Because before, imagine having the heart of a dead person and the memories of the dead person, or the feelings or the loves of the dead person. And we will also celebrate James Bedford, the first human cryonically preserved, who is in top shape. He was already reviewed to see his condition, and well, he's as good as we can tell for now. And then I have one other invitation, please. I am part of the organizing committee of RAD. RAD is Revolution Against Aging and Death. Look at some of the speakers. My boss, friend, and mentor, Ray Kurzweil, Max Moore, originally from England, Natasha, Bill Falloon, me, Aubrey de Grey, and Liz Parrish, that we call Patient Zero, because she is the first human who is undergoing 2 treatments to be biologically rejuvenated. So come to California. This is going to be incredible. 5 incredible days. And as Woody Allen would say, I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve it through not dying. So come to Spain, come to California, and let me tell you what the Spanish national flag says, plus ultra. I don't know how much you know about Spain, but in the flag it says plus ultra. And you understand what that is. Let's go beyond. So come to Madrid. We have our website coming online today, International Longevity and Cryonics Summit, and we will beat aging. We will see the death of death. Thank you very much. I want to live forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A real revolutionary. You have got lots of questions. By the way, we're going to get all the questions from all the talks and put them all online, so you can see the questions we haven't had time to answer. The top question, it's a bit of a skeptical question. It basically says that cryonics is just like a religion. It says, at present, cryonics is nothing but a new belief system about afterlife, and it's got businesses charging believers money to perform the ritual and life with that. in line with that mythology. Please address how you are different from these older religions.
Well, again, first of all, I'm an engineer from MIT. I'm a scientist, trained person. I'm not religious at all. I believe in science and technology. But also, I gave examples of things being done scientifically. I talked about the worms that were frozen and then reanimated in Spain. I mean, this is not a joke. This is science and technology. This has been done. Also, we proved that they could keep their memories, which is very important, because you don't want to be reanimated and forget everything, right? So these worms, they kept their memories. So to me, this is science. You know, it depends on when you talk about it. 100 years ago, we didn't go to the moon yet. So even 60 years ago, we didn't freeze sperm or eggs or embryos. It is a matter of time. So for those who don't believe it, it's okay with me. Just wait 10 years, 20 years. But I repeat, cryonics is only plan B. Plan A is not to die, and I do not plan to die, because I expect to live 30 years longer and then be rejuvenated.
If we cure death, as you're talking about, how do we decide which of 10 billion people get to live forever?
Everybody. I mean, this will be very cheap. You know, all technologies, when they begin, they are expensive and bad. And when they are democratized, they become cheap and available to everybody. Today, everybody has a mobile phone. If they want, anywhere in the world. They have mobile phones in Africa. They have mobile phones in India. The same will happen with these medical technologies. They will be incredibly cheap. The first billionaire, immortal person, will be a billionaire probably, because it might cost $1 billion, $2 billion. Mark Zuckerberg is already putting $3 billion. Google put $1.5 billion on Calico. So it will be expensive at the beginning, but it will be massified and it will be very cheap. Why? Because we are very cheap. You know, you are water bags that don't cost $100 in raw materials. You are 70% water, and you are not Evian water, Perrier water. You are dirty water. And the other 30% that makes you is very cheap materials. Very cheap materials. You are some carbon, some sodium, some potassium. You don't cost $100 in raw materials. Don't take it personally, the same with me. So keep someone alive in the future will be very cheap, because we are very cheap. We just don't do it right now. We don't know how to do it now, but we will, thanks to nanotechnology. So don't worry. This will be available to everybody who wants it. And the problem is that some people will not want it. And we know, for example, the Amish. Are you familiar with the Amish? They live in the 18th century. So there will be people, because of religion, not science, because of religion, who will stay behind.
Just one last question about costs. Who pays for the ongoing costs to keep clients cryogenically frozen? What if the business runs out of funds? This is a long time that they may have to exist, and most businesses fail at various stages.
Well, first of all, this is very cheap, as I was trying to explain. For example, in Russia, they charge between 12,000 euros and 36,000 euros. And this is forever, indefinitely. Because these containers, they don't even use electricity. They don't need light. They are basically filled with liquid nitrogen, which is cheaper than Coke, than Coca-Cola. Okay, so you can... Right. So actually you can keep people indefinitely very cheaply into the future. Anyway, also, we expect, and if you ask Ray Kurzweil as well, we expect that we should be able to reanimate people in 30 to 40 years from now. So we are not talking about millennia. We are talking about decades. This is very close. This is not expensive, I repeat. And also, for people who say, oh, I don't even have, 12,000 euros to be sent to Russia. Well, you pay with insurance. Most people pay cryonics with insurance, and it's not expensive. But anyway, that's plan B. I hope you do not die.
Thank you very much, José.